Today we're going to be talking about observation skills and responding to feelings. If you remember before, our goal is to understand how the client sees, feels, and hears the world around them. We're trying to understand them, get inside of their skin, and understand what is going on. And feelings are a lot in counseling of what's going on. Remember, feelings are just the thermometer that goes up and down based on how they're looking at life, the experience that they're having, and the things that they're having. But those are big symptoms and signs to us that we as counselors and life coaches need to get a hold of. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. It's not the world as I see it. It's the world as they see it that's going to determine how they act and what they do. Look at Acts 28:27. For the heart of the people is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have they closed, lest they should see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. So there's a whole lot going on here, what we're talking about. Our goals today are to name emotions and understand their importance in the helping interview, to define the skill of reflection of feelings, and offer some practice in distinguishing it from other skills. Examining gender and multicultural issues, demonstrate the skill of reflecting of feelings, and practice reflecting of feelings. Naming feelings and emotions. It's always good to have an overall chart that will give you sort of all the different names, so when you're trying to think about it and you can't, I don't know exactly the right word, you can then look at all these different words that we have in our language as to the different emotions that the person might have. And that's a useful tool that you have in counseling, is to have it there, because the person can't get a hold of it. You say, well, how about this, or how about this, or how about this? Talking does not necessarily include dealing with emotions. I can be totally emotionless and still carry on a conversation, especially if I'm talking about engineering or something like that. Emotions influence our decisions. The counselor's job is to help the client identify and deal with sometimes complex, troubling, and confusing emotions. There are whole areas of psychology that their entire theory is basically what we need to do is help this person recognize their emotions and draw them out so they can deal with them and process those emotions. Relationships must be accompanied by emotions in order to be satisfying. And of course, we use different words. Identify feelings by the word is the first step. If a person says they're mad, what do they mean? Well, maybe they're angry, they're annoyed, or they hate somebody. Do you see how you have to use additional words to try and figure out what they're really saying? If they say they're glad, what does that mean? Does that mean they have joy, they're happy, or they're excited? They're sad. Does that mean misery, hurt, or guilt? They're scared. Does that mean they're afraid, they're worrying, or they're anxious? So do you see, you as a counselor are going to have to use additional questions like we talked about last time to try and figure out exactly where the client is and what they're really feeling. Because at least right now, we can't plug them into some electronic thing that reads out what their feelings are, or we can't somehow run a wire from them to us and understand their feelings and feel what they feel without them being expressed in words first. Now, emotions have type, direction, and intensity. I'm going to use a little example here, and we've used it in other classes, so you may have heard this before, but it's an example that I got from one of our hospitals here in a seminar, and we're going to run a little exercise here for you. I want you to write down on your sheet of paper what feelings you might have, who they would be directed at, and how intense on a scale of 1 to 10 your feelings would be in this particular situation. Here's the story. It's 100 degrees outside, and you have to buy this one particular item, and there's only one store here in town that carries that particular item. And so you go to the store, their air conditioner is broken, the lines are all the way back across the store. You've been standing in line now for 30 minutes, and the person in back of you keeps jamming you with their cart. Now, write down your piece of paper. What would be your emotion? How high would it be? And who would it be directed at? We'll be teaching this again in anger management because that's where we sort of use this. Okay? Now, that's going on and you finally decide you're sick of being jammed with a cart. So you turn around to talk to the person in back of you. And you notice they have a red and white cane. That means they're blind. So now, what is your emotion? How high is it? And who's it directed at? Did it change a little bit? But after a while, as you're being jammed by the cart a couple more times, you hear somebody come up and talk to the person back of you. And you listen in on the conversation. And from listening in, you determine that the person really isn't blind at all, and they've just sorted you out, and they're bored, so they're making an idiot out of you. They've set you up. Now, what's your emotion? Who's it directed at? And how high is it? Has it changed a little bit? See, what am I showing you? That your emotions are totally controlled by the way you're looking at the situation, because the situation hasn't changed one bit. You're still in the same store. You're still being jammed by the same cart. The person still has that cane. Nothing has changed. I've just helped you to see it in a different perspective. And do you see how it affected your emotions and changed everything? See, now consider, what if instead of the way you were looking at it, you look at it this way? In the first situation, you say to yourself, they've got a problem. I'm going to pray for them. And then you turn around and you see they have a red and white cane. You say, they get a bigger problem than I thought they did. I'm going to pray for them more. And then when you see they're making an idiot out of you, you say, they've really got a big problem. I'm going to pray for them. How would that affect your emotions? I'm going to suggest that we take it from this and we'd change it to this. So what are we saying? Now turn that around the other way. So if I know their emotions, that's going to help me understand what they're thinking and how they're seeing the situation and how they're evaluating what's going on. And it's going to be part of later on my analysis of the problem. But also if I can get into their shoes, where I can feel what they feel, then I'm going to understand the situation they're in a whole lot better than I am in any other way. Now the problem is when we have mixed feelings, that even gets more complicated, doesn't it? It's going to be a combination of several emotions. Indicators are words like this: upset, torn, mixed up, confused, unsure, perplexed, troubled, ambivalent. Those are all words saying I've got a bunch of emotions going on at once, and it's sort of hard to sort them out. What could you say? Some of the words we're going to teach you to say here of how to reflect emotions. You can say, could you tell me more about that? Did you mean that? In other words, you can ask questions then, like we talked about last time, to try to understand the different things that are going on inside of the person, to clarify those torn emotions of that upsetness and so on. You can ask to reflect feelings as a metaphor or a picture. Did you feel trapped? Tell me what it felt like. What did that look like to you? because single words don't express the depth of the emotion. Ask the client to imagine the way they feel and then describe what it is like to them. Be alert for the client's nonverbal behavior. You can pick up things. But be careful of cultural differences in interpreting things. If this terrible thing happens to the person, but the person comes from a culture where men are supposed to be macho and he shows no expression, what do you need to do? You need to understand that that's probably just a defense and the emotions are under there, and maybe the only thing he knows is anger. But see, anger is a secondary emotion, so you're going to have to go deeper under that and find out now what are the hurts and the things underneath that are causing the anger. Identify, reflect the feeling, but use focus questions to help the client explore the emotional experience. We want to get to the place that we have some feeling of what they're feeling. Now, one of the main skills today is reflecting feelings. Helping others express their central concerns and emotions, listening for and responding to feelings in the client. Was I need to get sensitive enough that I pick up all these things in the client and I can make some guesses and then get them to verify if I'm reading this correctly. Communicates what you accurately sense in their world. And they say, no, you missed it. That's fine. I've got to keep looking. I didn't get that right. Respond to the feelings rather than the content. How would I feel if this happened to me? I use that a lot. I try and put myself into that situation, and then I can say, are you feeling this? Or if they don't mention something, I can ask them about that. Help them get more in touch with their experience. Now, what are the essential parts? The first thing is I need to identify the feelings through words, metaphors, or nonverbals of the client. Somehow I've got to get a hold of what's going on here. Then I'm going to say something like this. You seem to feel depressed. Is that right? I sense that you are feeling, and then I fill in the blank. Sounds like you're really angry. Do you see what I'm saying, how I'm using that? That's how is the skill of reflecting feelings. I can also say, because I see you're all red in the face, or because you said that, does that mean this? When you reacted that way, should I assume you were really hurt? If not, if they say no, then you say, is that close? Is that right? How do you feel? Do you see the idea? It's again more in the question, but we're questioning in a way to draw out the feelings to get the full experience from that person. And it's more effective in the here and now because the person's feeling it right now. But we also use it in the past. When your mom beat you and it wasn't your fault, how did you feel? So we use it back there, but it's more effective when the person's doing it right now, in the here and now, in the counseling session. Be culturally sensitive, because this can be very, very different within the culture of how the person sees things. Like I had a lady and her mother from Africa, and her mother had just beat her beyond anything, covered with blood you just can't imagine. But from the culture, the mom saw her as an absolute disobedient girl, and it was her duty to beat her into submission. So we have different feelings that are going to go along with different things there. Men tend to hold back feelings and only identify anger until trust is developed. Women tend to be more open, but may take pride in controlling their emotions, especially if they're Asians or Native Americans. Acknowledging feelings rather than delving deeply works better with some cultures than deeply exploring them. If you think about Chinese as an example, that whole area in Asian is saving face. And so they might not want to get that deep into things and admit that they even have those feelings. Acknowledging discrimination or defensiveness can help open up the client. Self-disclosure, like, if I was in your shoes, I would feel. So you can say, I'd be feeling that way. Do you feel those things? How about groups? Watch the group for a feeling of tension. Groups sometimes really have a spirit, and you can pick those things up, as well as individual feelings. They may be afraid to express it, and if you'll bring it out in the open, then the people in the group will all bring those feelings out in the open and deal with them. Bottom line, though, intuitive and empathic listening begins with compassion. If you don't really care for them very much, are you going to get very deep in what's going on? If you don't really care, if you can't feel it. See, that's why it's critical in counseling that you do this, that you're able to dig deeper into those things, but you got to really care. Hebrews 4:15. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted, like as we are, yet without sin. That's talking about Jesus. Remember, we're trying to be conformed to the image of Jesus Christ. We're trying to counsel like Jesus counseled, right? Well, how did Jesus counsel? With tremendous compassion and caring about the people. If you don't have the compassion, we can have all the skills, but it's not going to come through. 1 Peter 3:8. Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one for another. Love as brethren. Be pitiful. Be courteous. One of the things you need to make sure you're doing in this case is tune out conversations and distractions in your head. Quit trying to solve the problem. Your job is to focus in on the feelings and feel what they feel and experience what they're experiencing. Learn to be attentive to the deeper meaning and significance of what the client is saying. Because if you can get down and really understand where they're coming from, you're going to reflect feelings a whole lot better, aren't you? Intuition is a combination of conscious, unconscious, and spiritually generated responses to what you hear. If you have an intuitive feeling about something, try it out. Are you feeling this way? Are you really picking it up? Because sometimes you'll pick up in the Spirit, especially when you're listening to the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit can give you things that maybe the person didn't even give you, but you can reflect them back and you'll find out if they're real or if they're right or not. Curiosity can be a sign that you're picking up something intuitively. So if you have a curiosity, don't feel bashful about checking it out. Now try to be really listening to the Holy Spirit in some particular cases. I had a pastor, and this girl came in and he was just talking and so on and so forth. And as she was leaving, the pastor believed that she was going to kill herself. She hadn't said anything in the session to suggest that. But he believed it enough, he called 911. And when they arrived at her house, she had a gun to her head. But the thing is, can we hear from the Holy Spirit? Can we pick up those hidden things? And maybe even a word of knowledge or revelation or something underneath that would give you additional insight to use in your counseling. Intuition should drive the direction of your responses and reflecting emotions. The more you feel, the more you can reflect back, the more this thing goes between the two of you, the more you're going to get reality and get into their world, and the more you're going to be able to help them. Listen for the person's own insider discernment about the situation. Turning points or key actions indicate significant events. See, what if they're talking this way and all of a sudden they just change and go a different direction? What did that mean? Could you explain to me? You seem to have gone this different direction. Were you getting too close? Was it hurting too bad? There's some reason you didn't want to go there? Strong emotions indicate importance of something internal. That girl I was talking about from Africa would not go to a particular place in her life till we finally had Jesus go with her to that particular place. And that's when she was just being beaten, could not escape from her mom. And was just being beaten beyond imagination. In fact, it was so bad she had abreaction that meant it was like she was all happening again right in the counseling session. That's how powerful the emotions were that were hidden down there that she didn't want to deal with unless we could make it safe. By taking Jesus with her, we were able to make it safe, and she'd finally be able to deal with that and then finally be able to confront her mom. But if we'd never gone there, we would have never gotten to those emotions. So sometimes it's that I won't go there. That says, okay, that's just, what are the emotions? Is it fear? What is it? See what I'm saying? Red flags. Things that don't sit right or fit. There's just something funny about what the client's telling you. There's probably some emotional content there or things going on. Patterns, cause and effect relationship are repeated outcomes that have happened over and over and over again. How about a client that's been married 5 times now? I think maybe we have some emotions involved with that or things. Oh no, I got it all taken care of. Come on. We have to deal with that. And see, part of that is using that chart of emotional words. Another way, if you just don't really have a clue, you can go and take what they're giving you and go and look for other ones that are similar to that and try and find some other words. Let's see if we can put that in other words. Let's see if we can understand. I'm not really picking up exactly how you're feeling. Can you help me understand that more? See the kind of thing we're talking about? So now what we want to do, again, is we're going to go and do some illustrations of this. And when you go home, I want you to go around driving everybody absolutely crazy, reflecting back their emotions and trying to understand how they're feeling and what is going on, and practicing this particular skill. So what can I do to help you?
I'm getting ready to start a Bible study for women that are hurting and dealing with different issues in their lives. And in the process of studying for that, I think the Lord brought to my attention some issues I was dealing with my own family, my mom in particular, and just kind of struggling with trying to figure out honoring. You know, the Bible commands us to honor our father and mother, but what that means as far as how deeply to get involved with her life or let her be involved in mine due to past experiences, you know, before I go and counsel other people on how to, you know, deal with situations. I want to make sure that I'm where I need to be first and foremost. And so I'm trying to kind of figure out what boundaries to set, what are godly boundaries, if any, to set with that relationship now that I'm an adult, kind of, and as well as setting an example for my own kids, you know, on how to deal with conflict and resolution and forgiveness and things like that. That makes sense.
I'm sort of picking, though, that there's some emotions down there, and it isn't just a simple thing of what is right, that your situation with your mom in the past hasn't always gone the way you want it to, and that maybe you have some feelings down there that you're trying to get a hold of. Tell me more about that.
I just have some memories of as far as emotions, kind of conflicted on that. I guess, oh goodness.
So conflicting, which you
I
can
know,
give
that's
a
what I'm
different
trying to
piece
think
of
of
it.
good emotions. I guess, well, not fear, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of a good thing to use, or a good word to use. Maybe I'm still trying to figure out what emotions those are.
I'm hearing ambivalence, that there's some good ones and some bad ones.
Yeah, we had some issues, I guess, trying to figure out from there, some issues with some situations that happened when I was younger. And when I tried to go to her about that, it was completely, not only was it not believed, but it went the other direction to where I was put back in that situation. And then when it all came out that I was telling the truth, it got very hard I was blamed for lying in the process. In other words, I told the truth, and that didn't work. I was forced to lie to people outside the home about the situation going on. For making this so
Can you get more specific?
There was some abuse going on with a family member, and so when I tried to
physical abuse of somebody else or of you or
of myself,
of yourself,
and it being
like what? Can you get more specific yet? Exactly what happened?
Well, I was molested when I was younger.
By your
By
mom?
a family member. No, by a family member.
Did your mom know about it?
I found out she did.
She didn't know about it and did nothing.
Right. And when I didn't know that she knew about it, and I went to her about it, not knowing that at the time she already knew. Not only was it, I was slapped for it for one thing, for saying that, and I was called a liar, among many other things, by my own mom, and so, and the person was still in the house, and so, and being still a teenager, how confusing that would be. It was quite a while before I found out that she knew all along, because somebody else in the family had already gone to her about it, and she didn't know anything about it. I don't know why to this day, that's her reason.
How do you feel about all of that?
And
that's a whole lot that I...
confused, and I've forgiven her of all that, and so basically I'm trying to figure out now how to deal with that, because I found out when I there was a while where I had to break all communication with her for a while, and so I stepped back and tried to figure out, and get my healing, and kind of just figure out myself and how to deal with the situations and go from there. Then when I've tried several times to kind of open up communication again and open up a relationship with her according to what I felt like the Bible means about honoring your father and mother, as well as my own children being involved with their grandma and grandpa. And every time I tried to do that, I would see patterns that come up as far as being blamed for something I didn't do. Even as an adult, there were things that, that I was blamed for that I didn't do, and it would get very heated to where, physical abuse would take place in that.
How do you feel when you're blamed for things that you didn't do, and when you're physically abused for stuff you didn't do? What goes on inside of you?
A lot of anger. A lot of anger at the time.
I think it's more than anger. See, remember, anger is a secondary emotion, so that means underneath. What is it? What is the emotion that really is, what's really hurting you underneath? What is it?
It hurts you.
Yes, you got a mom you can't trust.
Yeah.
That's what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's right.
But how does a scared little girl inside of you feel when you have a mom that you can't trust, when you get accused of stuff, when you know she knows, but she still does it to you and blames you? What does that do inside?
At the time, as a little girl, terrified. No hope.
And the older lady now, what is the scared little girl still under there? How is she feeling?
I'm getting better as far as that's good. I don't feel as angry anymore about that. I mean, it's done, so there's nothing I can do about it. I guess trying to deal with it now, figure out boundaries now on what's right and what's not.
I guess I still think it's I'm not convinced. No, I'm not convinced that this is totally done for you. I think you still have some struggle inside of you about your mom. You said you've done the right things, but I think those feelings of being hurt by the person that's supposed to take care of you, and that you still can't trust them, and they're basically, see, I think the question you're asking me is, Do I stick my head back in the lion's mouth after it took off my nose and ear?
Yeah, because then when I don't, then when that happens and I separate myself again, then, it's, I get Bible
Then
verses
you're bad.
thrown at me and, you're not healed like you say you are.
You're a bad person.
Yeah.
And then how does it feel?
Betrayed.
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 There's a good word. and so what I'm hearing is that you're saying, how do I handle this? I want to get this Bible study going. Are you thinking of having your mom come? Is that the... No? Okay.
No, that's a good idea, right?
How does the Bible study relate to your feelings about your mom?
Well, because when we deal with issues, because we're dealing with overall hurt in general, each week or each study will be about a type of hurt, like abandonment, there's different types of hurt and pain, basically. And there was one about dealing with, what do you call it, not broken feelings, but can't think of the word now. Basically just broken relationships or dealing with your family and things like that. And so that kind of came up. Well, I want to make sure that, I don't believe that you have to be 100%, great, gung-ho to teach something. You can share, this is how I'm making it now and how I'm doing with it now. But I just felt that, you're right, maybe I wasn't quite done with that issue to be able to really teach it yet until I get a grip on it. I can't even think of a word, let alone teach it. So that's how that came up. So I'm trying to set aside that for a little while as far as dealing with broken relationships and dealing with family members and things like that until I make sure that.
So I'm hearing you want to get your slate straight before you're trying to help other people in this particular area.
And make sure that, that in my walk with God and my relationship and growing in my relationship with God, that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in my walk. And part of that is honoring your father and mother. And, I know from just past wisdom or advice that, forgiveness and honoring doesn't mean that you let them keep doing something that's wrong over and over and over. There's different ways of honoring, but at the same time, I still kind of felt like there was, just kind of felt that maybe I need to figure out how to deal with a little more than I thought.
So what do you think you should do that would still be congruent with your feelings? So I'm not sure burying your feelings and stuffing this all down so I can put on my little halo and wings, and be this group leader rather than just being open and honest about the situation. What could you do? How could you honor your mom?
In the Bible study or in what?
In life in general and everything. You're saying the Bible tells you should honor your parents, so you want to do that. And I think you already said that doesn't mean you have to violate boundaries or put yourself in a situation to be hurt again.
Yeah.
How can you do all that?
And that's kind of what I'm trying to figure, in the process of figuring out now. What does that mean as far as daily life? I'm still trying to figure out. Does that mean, I call her once a week or once a month or whatever?
What do you think would be right?
To still be involved to an extent, but maybe not.
To the extent you get hurt again.
Exactly.
Or to the extent that you have to trust her again.
Right. Yeah.
I think you have your own answer.
That's true. So that's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what reflection did you have on that? What do you think about it? What different skills did I use or not use? How could have I gotten deeper?
And you were just building on one feeling, kind of moving from the first feeling and trying to get a little bit underneath that surface feeling. From what I saw with the anger, you wanted to see what was deeper from the anger, and then it was trust from there.
And of course, what was I doing inside of my own head? If I was in that situation, how would I feel? So I'm looking for those kind of emotions and and I was just going around trying different things to see what was going to click to help her get those confused feelings sort of straightened out. It was I also validated her feelings. I said, how can you be congruent with your feelings and still honor your parents? Because we don't want just bury all your feelings. In fact, the worst thing you can do in feelings is to basically give them the deal, I'm discounting your feelings, you shouldn't feel that way, and so on and so forth.
I see that you're using a layer effect. You got past this emotion because they're intertwined with each other, and it's kind of hard to separate those unless you do touch on it.
Yeah, I was trying to, she was confused. I was doing the confused emotion thing. I was trying to
Separate those.
separate and pull them apart so that we could really look at them and she could really feel and understand. If I had more time, I probably would have tried to get her to now develop empathy for her mom and see where that would go. Because that's what she doesn't want, and that's what she's struggling with. But now, how do you think your mom could see this? I could turn the whole thing around and see if she can see things that maybe how her mom sees and why her mom would lie or put things on her out of defensiveness or be afraid of the relationship or other things like that. And I could maybe dug deeper and also got more specific, because we only got one specific situation. I believe there were probably many of those in her life growing up that really bring the emotions out and really struggling with those things. But the question is, can I understand where she's at, and can I get her to be real and get more in touch with what's going on inside of her?
Why are you here today?
I am dealing with some issues that stem back from childhood that I'm trying to resolve. Hopefully if I could put them behind me, I can move on and make sense of what I'm doing now.
Okay, what type of issues?
Insecurity issues. Insecurity issues. I grew up in a single parent home. My mother was a strong person. Strong as she ruled her roost. She did everything from cutting grass to cooking. And as a kid, I admired her in some things, but as an adult, her methods, when I applied them to my life, took me on a whole different avenue that I didn't want to go on.
How did that make you feel?
Man, so confused, because I thought that that was a surefire answer by viewing her life, that I couldn't go wrong with doing it the way she did.
Because you admired her, right?
Yes. Never knew my father, so whenever I did want something in life, I would go to her. I don't care if it was popsicle. We always went to her, and she's going to tell us yes or no. She never gave justification to why her answer was what it was, and we didn't ask. We just...
Weren't you afraid to ask?
I don't think I was. I think that was just a rule, and no one ever bothered by asking why we couldn't have a definition. She would just tell us no.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the conversation, and you just let it go. So why? Again, when I got older and got married, I thought, you know what, that same theory can apply for this. And because I never knew my father, it was really hard to be in a marriage, because I was used to doing everything. It didn't bother me to cook a meal, cut grass, do laundry, and work 8 hours a day.
It didn't make you tired or weigh
It
you
didn't,
out, or...
because I always thought that was the key element to a relationship. If I could prove to that spouse that I had some kind of value, that I was trustworthy, even if they were out of town or whatever, that things would keep running properly.
So, in other words, to get validate yourself, you then work, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And you just did it all because that's how you seen your mom do it?
Yes.
Right.
Later in marriage, I started to realize that it wasn't enough, because then I became dominant. And I've always had a dominant personality, instead of trying to put this thing on an even scale.
So you went from insecurity to being real dominant?
I did, because I didn't know what it was to ask a spouse, a dad or male figure in my life for something. I was always taught, if you want it, you do it yourself. Never asked a man to do it for you. It comes with attachments. You may not want to go down that avenue. Do it your own self. Then nothing's required of you. And I went to a marriage thinking, you know what? I'm okay. I don't need for you to do. I don't need for you to give. I don't need that validation. But in a way, on the other hand, I was thinking, wow, if I'm cleaning and cooking and taking care of the kids and going to school and working whatever else, he's going to come up to me and say, "That a girl?" And it didn't work like that. Because at some point, I became so dominant that regardless to what was said, things were going to go my way. And then I learned a valuable skill that made things even worse. I learned that I could get him to change his whole Sunday attire just by trying to find a nice word for him. BSing him. If I wanted him to wear a certain suit and he wasn't with it, I'd give him 30 minutes and he'd be totally dressed from the socks to the jacket and what I wanted him to wear.
Do you think he was manipulating him?
Yes.
And
It's a coping
so
skill.
it's kind of is it that you, from being so insecure, then finally you got really secure, and then you decided that you were gonna become more secure by telling him, you know, getting him to do what you wanted, you think, by that power?
I think I was really masking.
Just masking the insecurities?
Yeah, I think I was just masking a lot of things that I should have talked to him about.
Yeah.
I would punk him a lot of times too. So I don't think that kind
Your insecurities, do you think, was your mother, did she praise you when you were growing up?
No, my mother's ideal of love was, you have a roof over your head, you have food, you have utilities, you have shoes and clothes. I love you. And that was basically it. She never told us that she cared. Even if you came home with good grades, she would say, "Oh, great, go put that away." And that was the end of the conversation. So
When you tried to help her, was she happy with what you did or anything, or did she ever tell you that? Or she just said, "Go do it," and that was it?
that was it. She was not an emotional, touchy-feely person.
So did you feel like she loved you, or?
I didn't. I just felt like she was providing for me. And there was times in my life when I asked her, "You know, if you're so miserable with me, why don't you send me to my dad?" And that would create a whole different atmosphere. So I just learned to never mention him again. She died a couple years ago, and I still don't know who he is to today. But I also think that stops me with my relationship with God.
So how did you feel that session went? You were asking questions, trying to get deeper in the emotions. You were trying to do that throughout the entire thing. Do you think we got as deep as we probably need to get in the emotional feelings?
I don't know.
No, I think there's a whole world to be explored down there.
Now I see you
That
too.
Do we need to also
No,
ask?
but that we're not expecting to be your first try. We're not expecting to be perfect or anything like that. But I'm just saying that. How about some of the rest of you?
Do we need to ask more, how did that make you feel versus, so did that make you feel this way? I noticed that a little bit. I don't know if that was something we need to do, make sure we ask.
Try and draw them out and you get their idea first if they don't know. It sounded that there were some really deep emotions down there and some conflict. And you can see the challenge of trying to draw that out and to focus and get down there and to draw those things out. But that's the skill we're trying to learn. You did great trying to learn that. Do you see what I'm saying? But what I want you all to do, of course, is to go now and find other people that you can talk to at home or whatever and start doing the same things and see how much you can get into the world, how much you can draw them out to really identify those particular feelings and everything that's going on.